Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, hope you are fine and taking good care of yourselves. Welcome to the course Introduction to Linguistics. In our previous lecture, we discussed about phonology and phonetics. Today, we are going to study another branch of linguistics, which is called morphology. What is morphology? When specific sounds are put together in a specific way, words, phrases, and finally sentences can be created. This is how messages are sent and received. Morphology is the branch of linguistics that deals with the structure and form of the words in a language. In order to understand morphology, you need to know the term morpheme, which is the smallest unit of a word with meaning. That meaning is how language conveys messages. Morphemes are more than just letters. When a number of letters are put together into a word part that now has a meaning, then you have a morpheme. Morphology studies how these units of meaning and word parts can be arranged in a language. Let's take an example. Look at some of the words given below. Firehouse, chairlift. Each of these words has several phonemes or distinct sounds. Firehouse begins with the sound f and ends with the sound s. However, those sounds alone don't have meaning. Breaking the first word into smaller parts shows the morphemes fire and house. These are morphemes as they contain inherent meaning. Fire means bright, light, or heat, while house means a dwelling for human beings. Putting them together creates a completely new word. The other examples in that list work the same way. Two morphemes or meaningful elements are put together in order to form a totally new word. Think of morphemes as the pieces that come together to build a language, just like the pieces of a house. You may have a bunch of pieces of wood. We can say that wood means letters, but you don't get a wall, morphemes, until you start nailing them together. Then when all the walls are together, you finally have a complete house, or when we say in terms of languages, a meaningful sentence. We divide morphemes into two categories, free morphemes and bound morphemes. What are free morphemes? Some morphemes can be used by themselves, or we can say the type of morpheme that can stand alone as words by themselves. For example, friend, girl, tree, fish. It means they cannot be further divided and they are not dependent on any other morpheme to complete their meaning. They are making complete sense and giving us complete meaning. We divide free morpheme into two categories. The first category is called lexical morpheme. Lexical morphemes are words which carry content or meaning of the message. We can say that these are the content words that have a clear lexical meaning. This class is composed of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, and they are the words for people, things, actions, ideas, and attributes. Content words are considered an open class because now words can be added to this category. Like we can add the new words. With the advent of technology, thousands of new words have been added in the dictionary, such as viral, blogging, tweet, microchips, and the words keep adding with the change of lifestyle, fashion, and more inventions. Now, another category is functional morphemes. Functional morphemes or function words, on the other hand, do not have a clear lexical meaning, but they do serve a functional purpose in a language. These are the words such as conjunctions, articles, prepositions, and pronouns. Function words are considered a closed class because we cannot make any addition to this category. Now, let's talk about bound morphemes. Bound morpheme is a word element that cannot stand alone as a word, and it includes prefixes and suffixes. What is a prefix? A word or a part of a word that is placed at the beginning of a word to change its meaning. For example, clean, unclean, honest, dishonest, visible, invisible. Now, what is a suffix? Suffix is a word or part of a word that is placed at the end of a word to change its meaning. And example is adjust, adjustment, educate, education, beautiful, hopeful, hopeless. These all are the examples of suffixes. Now, bound morpheme can be divided into two categories, inflectional morphemes and derivational morphemes. Let's talk about inflectional morphemes. Inflectional morphemes or inflectional morphology refers to a functional or grammatical change in the word. For example, look at the word cat. Cat is a noun. If we have more than one cat, then we add an S and say cats. That S that we are adding onto the back of it is a grammatical change, and it's telling us that there is something more than one. So that's an inflectional morphological change. Look at the other examples that also denote the grammatical changes. For instance, clean. He cleans the room. This is that we add to the word is notifying here that we are talking about the third person singular. Then cleaned. This cleaned is also functioning here and denoting here the grammatical change that ed is identifying the past use of the past tense of the verb. Cleaning, ing. It means we are talking about the present continuous tense. So these are the grammatical changes like simple, simpler, and simplest. What we do in it, we are changing the degree of adjective. So these are the changes, and these are the grammatical changes that we study in inflectional morphology. However, let's talk about derivational morpheme. However, derivational morphology, on the other hand, refers to the changes that can be added to words to define their word class or to change their meaning. It derives from the original meaning or the original word class. So let's take for example, look at the example pay. Pay is a verb. When we add a suffix ment, it becomes payment. It means that we are changing the category of the word class. Pay is a verb. After adding a suffix, it becomes a noun, payment. Let us discuss small examples. For example, there is a word compete, and compete is a verb. If we add ition onto the end of it, it will become competition, and competition is noun. So what we are doing, we are changing the word class, the category of the word. Moving on, we can add the word that is ending at itive. So now it has become competitive. Competitive is an adjective. Additionally, you can also add ly onto the end of it, and then it will make it competitively. That's an adverb. Now, what we have done that we have changed the meaning from competitive, where someone is competitive to someone. So we have actually altered the meaning of the word and have put a morphological change. So this is called a derivational change. Now, if we add ing, ing, to the end of the word compete, it will become competing. So what do you think? Is it an inflectional change or a derivational change? This is a derivational change because it is functioning as a gerund noun, but it is changing and it is changing the grammar. It is giving us more grammatical meaning rather than changing the word class. So it can go in both ways. If we are using it as a gerund noun, it could be derivational. But when we are using it in a tense, then we will consider it an inflectional change. Now, let's take a look at few other examples to make sure that we understand and so that we can identify whether the morphology underlined in these examples are inflectional or derivational. So let's begin. It is a small test of your understanding. There are 5 sentences. The first one, he drowned into the river. She is an educationist. This is unbelievable. I have Sarah's books. John goes to school. So let's start with first sentence. Ed in the last word. Uh, sorry, it's okay. He jumped into the river. All right. So let's take the first word, jump, and then the ed that we are adding is telling us that it happened in the past. So this is a grammatical change, and this is an inflectional morpheme. Okay. The example or sentence number 2. She is an educationist. So educate is a verb. Education, as we can see a word here. So if we add ation, it becomes noun, education. So if we add ist onto the end of it, it becomes a noun again, but it's specific to being a person in the field of education. So both of these changes are derivational changes. Now look at the next sentence. This is unbelievable. So here, believe is our root word and it is a verb as well. And we have on the front part, and that changes believe into not believing. And as believe is a verb, so we'll add able in the end of it and it will become adjective, unbelievable. So that's also a derivational change because it is changing the word class from believe is a verb to unbelievable to adjective. So that is why it is a derivational change. Another example, I have Sarah's books. So this S is apostrophe showing possession. As whose books are these? These are Sarah's books. So this is a grammatical change or an inflectional change, as you can clearly see written in the end of the sentence. And the last sentence is John goes to school. In this situation, this ES that is added to the verb is making sure that we are talking about the third person in simple present tense. So this is referring to the grammatical change. That is why it is inflectional morpheme. So if we summarize today's lecture, so we can say that morphology is the study of words and words formation. And then it is divided into a smallest unit, which is called morpheme. And morphemes are further divided into 2 categories, which are free morphemes and bound morphemes. Free morphemes also have 2 kinds. One is lexical morphemes and the other one is functional morphemes. Bound morphemes also have 2 categories. One is inflectional morphemes and the other one is derivational morphemes. And then there are some examples on the screen you can see. When you look at it, you will understand that what is the difference between derivational and inflectional morphemes. So here we end the lecture. Thank you so much.